Thanks for joining us today, Essie Hinton.
It's my pleasure. Thank you so much for inviting me to answer a few questions today. I really appreciate it. What's your first question?
You were a 16-year-old high school student in Oklahoma when you wrote The Outsiders. Where did you get the idea for the story?
That's a good question. Well, I was actually 15 when I first began it. It was the year I was 16 and a junior in high school that I did the majority of the work. That was the year I made a D in creative writing. Don't tell my other teachers. One day, a friend of mine was walking home from school, and these nice kids jumped out of a car and beat him up just because they didn't like the fact that he was a greaser. This made me mad, and I just went home and started pounding out a story about this boy who was beaten up while he was walking home from the movies, the beginning of The Outsiders. It was just something to let off steam. I didn't have any, grand design in mind. I just sat down and started writing it. I look back and I think it was totally written in my subconscious or something.
So, was there a real life pony boy, a real Johnny?
I get that question a lot. Actually, Ponyboy's gang was inspired by a true life gang, the members of which were very dear to me, very dear to my heart. Later, all the gang members I hung out with were sure that they were in the book, but they aren't. I guess it's because these characters are really kind of universal without losing their own individuality.
How did you turn that inspiration for a story into such memorable characters?
Oh, thank you for saying the characters are memorable. Well, when I write, an interesting transformation takes place. I go from thinking about my narrator to actually being him. A lot of Ponyboy's thoughts are my thoughts. He's probably the closest I've come to putting myself into a character. He has a lot of freedom, true blue friends, people he loves, who love him. The things that are important to him are the things that are important to me. And I think Ponyboy and Soda and Dairy come out better than the rest of them because, they have that love for each other.
What were you like as a teenager? Were you a greaser, a soc?
Oh my gosh. Well, I was a tomboy. I played football. My close friends were guys. Fortunately, I was born without the need to belong gene. In other words, a lot of, kids out there feel like they need to fit in, they need to belong. I just never felt that way. But that need to belong gene says that you have to be in a little group to feel secure. I never wanted to be classified as anything, nor did I ever join anything for the fear of losing my individuality. I didn't even realize that these guys who were my good friends were greasers until one day we were walking down the street and some guys came and yelled, "You got it, greaser." It's funny to look at people you've known all your life, to suddenly see them as everyone else sees them with their slick back hair and cigarettes hanging out of their mouth and black leather jackets and, respond, "My God, they're hoods." You know them and know that they're not hoods, but they just look like hoods. I had friends on the rich side of town too, and I saw that they had their fair share of problems too.
Okay, well, what made you want to become a writer?
That's a good question. What made me want to be a writer? Well, I would say the major influence on my writing has been my reading, actually. So when I was young, I read everything, including cereal boxes, coffee labels, you name it. Reading taught me sentence structure, paragraphing, how to actually build a chapter. Strangely enough, it never taught me spelling, but I've always loved to write, almost as much as I love to read. So I began goofing around with a typewriter when I was about 12 years old. I've always written things that interest me, so my first years of writing, that will be third grade through 10th grade, so I was a sophomore in high school. I mostly only wrote about cowboys and horses. I wanted to be a cowboy and have a horse, so that's what I wrote about. Writing is easy for me because I never begin to write unless I have something to say. I'm a character writer. Some writers are, plot writers. I have to begin with the people. I always know my characters, exactly what they look like, their birthdays, what they like for breakfast. It doesn't matter if these things appear in the book, I still have to know. I get ideas for characters from real people, but overall they're just fictional. My characters only exist in my head.
Okay, great. Thanks so much.
It's my pleasure. Thank you. Thanks for reading my book, The Outsiders. This is Essie Hinton, and I am signing off.